Hello and welcome everyone. In this video today we're going to talk about the string class from the Simplex Toolkit. The string class is built on top of the standard string from the standard library, and there's various means of constructing it, whether using an array of characters, a standard string, a character with repetition. So let's say you want to create, I don't know, maybe some padding or something. So you put in a space and then you say that you want to reproduce that space 15 or 20 times or something, instead of hitting spacebar 20 times and then trying to look at your code later on and wonder what you were doing. Or it also can copy from another existing string. So if we look at the main CPP file we have here, which comes along with the example of how to get Simplex set up, you can see that you pass in your number of arguments and you have your command line arguments, which are, it's an array of characters. And this is the normal argc, argv thing that you will see. They're just called out in name here. And you can see that we're going to use a simplex array, and it is an array of strings, and it just goes through this for loop here and it adds that string. So we're going to touch on arrays later on, but if we want to create a new string, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the namespace simplex so that I don't have to keep typing over and over. So we have a string here, and we can say this is a testing string and it equals testing. So we can create a string this way by just putting in a hard-coded value. If we have a standard string, and even though it's included because it's a requirement for the Simplex library, I'm going to just put in here string. If we have a standard string, we can also do this. Can bring it in from a standard string. You may be working with numbers and you want to save a number into a string. So what you could do with that is actually, there we go. Something like this. So what we're doing is we're calling a static method or a static member function from the string class. We just put in here 42. And what it will do is it will output it as a number. So we could work with that, and let's say we do something like this where we have a number and we want to add to it another 2. At this point we're expecting a number to equal 422 because it is a string at this point. If we want to get an integer back out of this, we quite simply just say integer, our number equals to a number. And you can see there's multiple things here. We could go to a standard string. We could go to a C string, which would be used if you're working with a C library. Lower and uppercase in this instance wouldn't affect anything because there are no uppercase or lowercase numbers. Or we could do 2 number. Now, toNumber needs us to supply the number type we're expecting, and we're expecting an integer. And it is a method of sorts, so you do have to supply the beginning and end parenthesis as well. And now number will equal 422. I guess technically, when it was a string, I should do this for explaining it, because now it's actually a real number at this point. All right, let's look at some of the other things. You might run into instances where, let's say, you have a padded string. And your padded string equals something like this. And when you're working with it, you might not want all that padding in there. So let's say you want it with the beginning cleared out. So I'll just call this string 1 here at this point, and we'll do a padded string dot trim beginning. What that will do is, at this point, string 1 will equal something with those spaces after it. If we were to, I have not put on my key mapping here yet. Well, that's all right. I can copy this manually. There we go. Let's say I want to trim the end. This will do the opposite, where it will now look like this. And the one that I'm assuming most people will probably use is just trim. And what trim does is internally it calls both of these for you. So you'll just end up with the word something in your string. So those are working with creating a string from characters or other standard strings, creating from numbers, dealing with padding. Let's see, what else do we have? We could talk about the lower and upper functions here. There is the plus feature for adding strings together. So if we were to look at, let's say, testing a standard string, and this is from standard string, so I can work with these two. I could have a result. We could just really mess with this. We could do testing string to uppercase plus a space plus we actually could do standard string at this point because we do have a string in here, so it will be able to figure out what we want, but I'm going to do from standard string to lowercase because I want to be able to call that. What our result in this case would be is we would have testing, and then we'd have a standard string, all lowercase, because of the uppercase and the lowercase here. All right, and let's see. You can use if statements as well. So something like string 3 equals something. This code will execute because it does equal that. You can do not equals. And let's see here. There is lengths. So let's talk about that briefly. If you were to do this, and let's do just that string 3 length, that will get you, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this will give you that there are 9 characters. Let's say you want to see if sum is in something. It will give us a position, so let's do the position of our index of sum. And this will return 0 because it is at the very beginning and it uses 0 as the very beginning. If it can't find it, it will return -1. So you'll want to use signed integers as opposed to unsigned integers when you work with the index of. All right, last index of is if we have, let's just create a new string, and we'll say this one is, since we're playing around with this, if we were to do position of a new string, the last index of sum, it will give you this one. So its position would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it'll start at 9 because that is that 9th character. If you were to use index of, it'd give you 0. Last index of, it'll give you 9. The other feature you have when you work with index of is an offset. So if I were to do this, index of sum, but let's offset at least 1 character. What it basically is doing is it will look at this string. It will skip the 0th character, if I can term it that, and will find the first time it matches with this new string. So it will come over here and start with this character. So it'll still start here though for the counting. So 0, 1, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will say it'll return the number 4 for you. It won't return 3. It doesn't subtract this one out, but it will skip starting the search there for you. All right, we've talked about that with the indexes. Whether or not it contains it and contains count. So this a new string one is a good example with this. If we want to ask whether or not it equals or it contains it, we can do a new string that contains sum, and it will return true. We also can do a new string contains count sum. It will return 3 because that appears 3 times in the string. Replace. If you were to do this, replaced will now equal more. Oops, we want that to be a comment. So it will replace all instances in that string with its with the second one that you provide there, the second parameter. Also, this is able to be written in things with, I guess you would call it fluent programming. So you could do this as well. To uppercase. Yeah, we can really mess with this. Contains. There. So we take some, change it to more, make it uppercase, and then we check if it contains more that's all uppercase, and this will return true. So you can chain these together. All right, split. So split dabbles a little bit with the array feature again. So I can call it items, and let's say we have 1, 2, 3. If I do item string dot split, and we want to split based on a comma, what it will do now is it will automatically create this array for us, and that array will consist of 1, 2, 3. We'll get into arrays at another point in the future. Low battery. That's always exciting to have on a video. All right. So apparently I have to wrap this up a little bit quicker. And let's see here. We talked about these. Join we'll talk about next. So I have, let's say I want to recombine this with pipe characters. So what I can do is string, and again, the naming convention that the library uses is if it's a static method or member function, to use it starting with a capital letter. That way you know that capital letter generally denotes to use colon before it. So it's saying pass in our array. We'll use our items array. And then we need to also have our joiner symbol here. And what this will give us is 1, 2, 3, that way, as a string. Now the last thing to work with here are substrings. So going back to our sum one here, if we wanted to do just the substring starting from, I guess let's do the first character, not the 0th character. What we would do is this. We would do a new string, substring starting on that first character, and this will give us that. Now let's say we just want to take me out of sum. What we could do is we'll actually skip the 0th character and the first character, so we'll go to the second character, and we just want 2 characters out of that. So now what we'll end up with is me out of sum. because we moved over from 0th first, so number 2 is right here, and we went over 2 characters. So I hope that this was educational and helpful, and that you're able to use this for something productive, that it fulfills your requirements. And have a nice day, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.